Hey folks, before we get into this great episode on Climax with Chris Hale, I just wanted to let you know that I have set up a Patreon for the podcast. You can find it at www.patreon.com/CW/THTH podcast. So, it was actually talking to Niall Spain from the Great Fuck Buddies podcast, and he told me if he could have started a Patreon sooner, he would have. So, there's just one price, it's $150. It's working off a model of soundness. If you like what I do and you want to support an independent trans-owned podcast, you want to kick in a little bit of money that will, go towards paying the hosting and all that stuff. I understand there's a lot of great causes out there for people to give money to, but if you can, please consider throwing less than the price of a soft drink my way. I want to shout out the 3 members I've already got: Sarah Lynn, Sive, and Deanna. I wouldn't be able to do this podcast if it wasn't for the support of my partners. This episode in particular is dedicated to my partner Deanna, who handles the bulk of the admin to do with the flat, which leaves me space to do things like this. So I really love and appreciate you, baby. Hello and welcome to episode 10 of The Horror with Patricia Dahlia Thompson. And today I am joined by, actually, when we were doing the podcast kind of preamble before we record, I forgot to ask if I could clown on you for being the youngest guest that I've had on the podcast so far. Chris Hale. Welcome
Woo,
to the podcast.
happy. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
How old are you again?
I
You're
am
24?
21. 21.
Which generation does that make you part of?
I think I'm right on the precipice of Gen Alpha, but I am Gen Z, I
You
believe.
Okay, well, you're very Gen. I say this complimentary. You're very Gen Z, maybe even like millennial coded in your taste in film. So
Yeah, I certainly am.
you are thus far our youngest guest, and our oldest has been 62. But yeah, Chris, you are. Do you want to introduce yourself to the horror listeners? You are a filmmaker who has made, what was it, Lesbian Vampire Seeking Jewish Lover, which I watched this week. You've done a few shorts, but your biggest short is K-Hole, which is going to be on Gumroad the 1st of June. I'm going to try and have the episode out around that time, and we'll link it in the podcast notes and everything. But yeah, if you could introduce yourself to the...
Yeah, as she said, I am a filmmaker. I'm also a poet, writer, all around artsy brain person. A clown, perhaps some could say. Uh, it's yeah, and as mentioned, yeah, my new film K-Hole's coming out. We just wrapped up a tour in the States.
Oh yeah.
I'm flying out to the Netherlands on the 31st for a screening there.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It's sort of been a whirlwind of a couple of months, but I'm very happy to be here, as I say.
So K-Hole is kind of the longest short that you've done so far. It's like the most involved kind of one. I became aware of the film when the K-Hole account started following the podcast, and immediately I was like, K-Hole film, look it up, trans director. I'm like, immediately I'm following back. I don't want to, I have my professional employment, so I can't talk too much. But suffice to say, it resonated with me, the title. So I was like, oh, let's go. This seems fucking amazing. And I reached out to you, and you sent me a link. And it's just like what we talked about. It's more kind of like transgressive in the best sense, kind of trans cinema. But where did it kind of, because I heard you mention, also shout out to Maxell Tlena and Dysphoria podcast, because Maxell is exec producer on the short. Maxwell, if you have seen Castration movie Best of Both Worlds, she's the friend. I can't remember the character's name, but she talks to who when she says, "Oh, I'm sober, but I do ketamine." Yeah, and like I've been listening to that podcast and it fucking rocks. But I heard you saying kind of that it was kind of inspired by your own experiences. So like how much do you want to talk about that? Like what was the idea
Yeah,
behind the short?
I've been in plays and I love all the transgressive trans cinema that's been coming out. It's, I mean, we really are in a golden age. And but a lot of it's ridiculously bleak, as it's going to be given,
Yeah.
the worldwide climate around trans issues.
Yeah.
And, there's bleakness in my film, but I wanted to make something that is sort of a rallying cry for community, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, I have my own experiences. I'm like you, I'm trying to be careful what I say. But
It's not as if we're
yeah,
talking about a movie that isn't doesn't has a lot of drug use as well today, but
of course. But there's, as I say, there's this bleakness for all trans cinema, and to really explore something softer, nicer, empathetic, um, is kind of the key word that I'd say for the film. I
yeah,
hope. I hope it comes across as empathetic. But I originally wrote the script when I was
yeah,
15. That's the first draft. And so for the last 6 years, I mean,
okay,
it's a project I come back to during periods in my life where it speaks to me. And
okay.
what ended up happening is I lost my master copy. And so the shooting script is pretty true to what I wrote at 15. Yeah.
Wow, okay. So at 15 was this drawing from your own life? Like I can't imagine writing that at 15 except writing it from an edgy place where I was imitating stuff I'd seen in movies, you know?
Yeah, it was pretty taken from my life. I mean, I moved out from home when I was 15. Um, and yeah, I experienced a lot. And to
Shit.
draw from that, I really do believe in art as therapy.
Of
Um,
course, yeah.
and so all my films have some aspect that I'm trying to work through myself and find solace in my own mind. But yeah, so
I think
15.
Nelly is a fine example. Connor, who plays
Mm,
Chloe, is just like a fine example of like a thing that I've noticed. Like I haven't made anything here yet, but there just always is in and the film's set in Aberdeen. It's set, which is that's where you are currently, yeah. Um,
yeah.
and I had to be very clear. I was like, when I watched it again the other day, I took notes. I was like, it's Aberdeen, it's not Glasgow. I was like, I can't make do like a Hello Cleveland mistake on that. Like, I think Nelly just has this like screen quality, this star quality, whatever you call it. Amazing looking, like just striking looking trans woman who has a quality that is you just have to pick up a camera sometimes and just like find these people and I think one thing I kind of like wanted to ask is with her relationship with Anushka, is that how I say her name?
Yeah, that's correct, Tanushka.
With Anushka's character, is it meant to be that they were a couple and have broken up, but they're still in that kind of yeah?
Yeah, I mean, that was my view, writing and shooting it. But I very much believe in not spelling everything out.
Hmm.
And so if people interpret it differently, which people have, all the power to them.
Yeah.
But but yeah, there is this codependency. Actually, I met Nellie through the film. She's just the most fantastic performer. I had seen her perform before, but I had my lead actress dropped out 2 weeks before the shoot.
Oh shit.
And so I'm messaging everyone, hey, I've got this role, and it's like quite a me role with some controversial elements. And so everyone's like, I'm not touching this, which is completely fair. And someone said, I actually know this girl, and I think she'd be perfect to it. So I got given Nellie's email, and the script really spoke to her. She found a lot of herself in it. I mean, she's spoken about this, and I think it's really nice and beautiful. And I would consider Nelly, I mean, she's genuinely one of the finest actors I've ever worked with. She's
Yeah,
just the most incredible actress. And yeah, it might be something in the pipeline to where I'll be able to work with her again, which I'm very happy for.
incredible. It's interesting what you said about, the kind of bleakness. I certainly feel, it is a golden age, a great time to be alive for, transgressive trans art. I do feel like that's directly proportional to how shit everything feels. And as we're recording this, this is the day of the ruling about the EHRC guidelines, which I don't even like. I can't even get into today of looking into how much that's going to play out. But I did a post on Instagram where I kind of said it like, and I feel like I kind of articulated a little bit talking to Carson is like, I do feel that like, transgressive feel bad trans art is what sates my soul right now. It's what I need. My girlfriend D did kind of point out that like the exception in terms of the kind of transgressive trans cinema that we've watched recently, the exception in terms of not being feel bad is I don't know if you've seen Puppy Girl, the Henry Hansen Milo Talwani movie.
I haven't seen it yet, but a dog movie I enjoyed very much.
Oh, dog movie's fantastic. It's so fucking good. Milo's character and that just like speaks to my scumbag soul. Like when I broke up with
So
my
good.
ex and was just like living with friends in London and ostensibly to get my life together. Yeah, that was me. But that's kind of the exception because it's not so outwardly bleak. It's quite sweet, but also it's in its own way very transgressive. But I do, the question of like at this time where we're under attack, like is trans art that kind of deals with the negative and the messy and the dark aspects of trans life is that, is that stuff that I need to elevate right now? But I feel like by elevating transgressive trans art, we are lifting up and drawing a light on trans performers, trans actors, trans everything. So it's like the art is very bleak, but for me it's a really positive thing. Like it's actually much more positive than bleak. This kind of like this movement to me.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, when I was saying that there's a lot of bleak art, that was not to the detriment of any film whatsoever. But I've loved all these films, and I completely agree that just by the nature of existing, it is something that's uniting a lot of people. It's bringing the community closer. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing.
I wanted to talk to you about one of the things that you kind of like post on the Instagram, the K-hole Instagram, which kind of caught my attention, was where you kind of laid out like cinematic inspirations, which included this film Climax that we're going to talk about today, but also Evil Dead, Naja, which I haven't seen yet. I feel like there's an honesty in highlight. First of all, as a film nerd, it endears me to a work when you're like channeling these kind of these great works of art, but also like I feel like there's an honesty to kind of like showing where your influences are. Like, is that where you come from with doing that stuff? Because I know some people would rather not be so honest about where their inspirations are coming from?
Yeah, it was almost a hard post to put together because there is a lot of influence on, framing and shots from, I am a huge fan of cinema. I have been since, I was small. But I found it difficult because it's like an odd one, but a lot of my influence comes from photography, paintings, music, because if I'm drawing from cinema a lot, then it does risk being a repetitive thing, and there's so much more artistically to draw from. But it felt great to be honest. Hey, here's the influences, and there's a lot of horror. Horror is my favorite genre.
Hell yeah.
I enjoy drawing from different genres because I think there's a lot of untapped potential of bringing in horror comedy into something that otherwise is, on the surface quite bleak.
So how did Maxell end up as producer, exec producer? How did that kind of come about?
Yeah, I had been I've known Maxell for a year or so before K-hole because she had this poem about vampires that spoke to me so deeply. And when I was screening Lesbian Vampire, I just hit her up and was like, "Can I read this? Because I think this sets the tone so well for the film that I'm going to screen. And she's like, absolutely, of course. And then fast forward a year and she's seeing Hale and she's like, I love what you're doing here. I love what I'm seeing. If there's any way I can help out, I would love to. And she did. She's been incredible. She's one of the sweetest souls I know. So to really bring it all together.
How did the kind of the rest of the casting come about? Because I know you've got Rune Carroll, who was Ivy in People's Joker,
Mm.
doing a voice in there. Like, how did the rest of the casting kind of happen?
Rue is Scottish based,
I
which
know, yeah.
helped. I met her. I first saw her at a screening of The People's Joker, where she did a brief introduction to the film, and I kind of thought she was dynamite.
Oh, yeah.
She really lifted up the room. Most of the cast, though, is friends.
Fair.
There are two actors in the film, as in like professional actors. I'm not gonna say who they are, but I think you can tell. I much prefer to work with non-actors because you're able to get real honesty and rawness out of them.
Yeah.
They don't go in with pretense or that they even know what they're doing, and that's
Mhm.
beautiful. And that's always one of my pieces of directing. I'm like, say it as you. Find what you can find within the character that you relate to, and from there, it's easy sailing. We did a lot of freedom on the set of allowing the actors to really move about the dialogue and make it their own, which I think adds to the flow and helps. But it did make it a nightmare in post because we had, this is going to shock you, audio issues. um, and the memory card that was recording all the audio just
It
completely
was
got
the
corrupted.
did you
Which is
right
why we have
fun?
that cheeky thank you to Sandisk at the end of the credits. But thank God for my audio engineer, Cass Kelman, who fixed it best she can. You watch the film and you can totally tell, but it's a combination of, trying to reconstruct camera audio and then post dubbing. Yeah.
I felt like because like you sent me the link to the YouTube and then you sent me a link to the short and I felt like the sound mix had been improved in the interim period. But you know what I mean? Already, I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but I've had like the it like connection cut out and then speed up, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm recording this on a 10-year-old laptop, like, but it's starting to come around to that being an aesthetic now, so that's fine. One of the revelations of the short for me was the Sasha Corn songs that are in it, but Hydrosign is like such a bop. I've sent it, everybody who I know who I've sent it to says it's such a bop. The other song that she has, Need, which is in the film as well. But how did those songs kind of end up being in the movie? Because they're fantastic.
How did those songs end up being in the movie? The answer is that our original song did not get cleared.
Okay.
Sasha's a very good friend of mine, that I know from the real world.
Hmm.
Um, and she's just the most wonderful performer. I adore her music. And so we don't get the original song cleared, and I'm going through everyone I know who's a musician and seeing how their songs fit. And
Right.
Hydrogen is like it fits so well. And I'm like, Sasha,
No, it's
can I
fantastic.
use this? It was just a demo she had. It wasn't released previously, but
Incredible.
it's such good. I went through her SoundCloud and I'm going through every track, and I'm like, Sasha, please may I use your music? Here's some money. May I use it? Uh, and I'm so happy because I really think that song at the end is sort of emblematic of the whole film. I
No,
think it ties
100%.
in really nicely. Yeah.
100%, yeah. Okay, well, you should check out K-Hole when you can. It's fucking amazing. Let's get on to the main topic. You originally suggested another Gaspar movie, which is Lux Aeternia, which I can tell my Gaspar story. We get to that one, but it was in conversation. You were like, "Oh, I could also really talk about Climax," and I was like, "Okay, I fucking love Climax, so let's do Climax." But what was it that made you go for those films and not what is would generally be kind of the biggest Gaspar Noé movie, which is Irreversible? And yeah, then I guess we can talk about Gaspar as a filmmaker in general.
To me, Gaspar Noé has just improved so much as a filmmaker over time. Rewatching all his films in preparation for this, there is obviously an edginess to all his films, But I think in the beginning, especially with I Stand Alone, it's edginess for the sake of edginess. But he's been able to find
Uh-huh.
a number he's been able to find the stories which call for it. And
Mm-hmm.
he's saying a lot more with his art in the more recent films, in my opinion. And obviously, the technical aspects are fantastic. It was on the set of K-Hole. I was talking to Nelly, and I said, what are your favorite films? And she said Climax, and I was like, this is going to be the most
Yeah,
breezy
yeah,
shoot. It's going to be the best shoot ever.
yeah.
And it was, yeah. So had a lot of influence on my work, I'd say, Climax especially.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that the shout out to Climax, I was like, immediately I can tell that this is the kind of film that I'm interested in. And I compared K Hall to, I think in my original letterbox review, was it Scottish Safety slash No Acor. Obviously, when I invoke the Safties, I'm talking about the movies they made before they broke up, brothers before they split as a filmmaking duo. But
Before they
it
broke
has
up,
like
yeah,
that it has like that yeah, it has it was really sad. It was straight people's black dresses breakup. But it has that kind of like tension, that like anxiety to it that I associate with these filmmakers. So you would say you prefer something like Lux Eternia or Climax to Irreversible?
yeah. I do really enjoy Irreversible. It would be up there in terms of my horror movie ranking, but I do prefer Climax. Yeah. Maybe it's that I see more of myself in the film. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe he's matured massively as a filmmaker, is what I'd
Yeah.
say. And I think that's such a wonderful place to be. It
Yeah,
was
100%.
my local theater closed down a couple years ago, an independent one, which was such a shame. But I think one of the last films I saw there was Vortex,
Yeah.
and that was such a good experience in this packed house.
I'm a huge fan of Gaspar. I've It took me a while to watch Irreversible, and I will say, like, I think Irreversible is a brilliant film. I've talked about it in this podcast before. Also, I can talk about it forever. I think it's a brilliant film. I think it's a perfectly made work of art. I think it is, and watch a lot of stuff that like you have to shake your head to show you don't approve of while you're watching it with someone else. Like there are some films that I like that I'm not going to go to bat for morally. But
Of course,
Irreversible I do think is a morally justified film in that I feel like it justifies it's like no, rape should not be something that you want to watch. And I think like he has edgelord's propensity to be an edgelord. I think it's definitely a part of him, but I don't feel Irreversible for the most part was that. I feel like it's in terms of wanting to portray something, mourning something beautiful and mourning a person, and showing the actual the cost of destruction to a person, to what happens with violence, and the frightening random nature of violence. I've said like you can debate whether Irreversible is a horror movie, and people have done it for years and years and years, but it scares me in a way that not a lot of other horror films do, because it's just about being in the wrong place at the wrong time and encountering somebody who is fucking horrible. And the violence that is done in retaliation is like most violence, just fucking stupid. And technically, it achieves so much. And the thing that made me fall in love with Noé's movies was the fact that they are so sensory, and I'll return to that. But Irreversible is one where it's like I appreciate it. It's not a fun movie. And Climax, despite featuring a woman having a miscarriage and cutting her wrists, is more fun. Like it's just one that I can return to more easily. I showed my girlfriend that before we went to see Irreversible because I think it's an easier on ramp for his movies than Irreversible.
absolutely. I just rewatched Irreversible for the first time since I was like 13. You can call that a formative experience, perhaps. But to return to that, I appreciated so much more. I completely agree with you. That it is justified. When I was saying that some of his older stuff is edgy, it was I Stand Alone that just, I was like, this is edginess for the sake of edginess, which makes sense as his first film.
Yeah.
But I also thought it failed at being shocking. It's really influenced every shock film since in terms of
Uh-huh.
structure, but completely fails at being shocking because it kind of plays its cards at the very beginning.
I have not watched it for a long time, but I think I like I Stand Alone a lot more than you. The Attention, nous avons, vous avez 5 minutes to quitter le salon. That which for those who don't speak French, and I probably mangle that, but it's the notice, the warning that comes up that says you have, I don't remember how many minutes, but it warns you have this many minutes to leave the cinema before the end. Like, it's a William Castle gimmick, and
Yeah.
I love that. And that's the thing that I love. Another thing I love about Noé's work is that, like, he's as much influenced by, the other day went to see Possession on the big screen, walked back from the cinema, which is one of my favorite movies. The third time, I have a tattoo of it. It's one of the third time I'd seen it on the big screen. Walked back from the cinema, met a bunch of dolls who were coming out of social. We went to the queer bar, kissed a bunch of cuties, went home, watched Carson's movie. Bosh! It was say no more. It was fantastic.
Perfect
But
day.
I was talking to one of the girls outside, and I was saying, like, I love that his movies, like, he is as much influenced by, like, slasher movies as he is by Kubrick, and I love a good mix of, like, quote unquote high and low art, and blending of influences like that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's something that I've always tried to apply to my own work as well. And I see it so clearly in his work. I mean, I took a note here rewatching Climax today, that we open with this scene, it's characters talking, but the films I saw, they've got Possession there, they've got
Yeah,
Suspiria, like bordering the screen, Eraserhead, and then also some like queer classics.
yeah.
And I adore this mix of influences and wearing it on your sleeve,
Yeah,
which he
100%.
certainly does. Yeah.
Because I mean, the last film we covered, the next film we cover, like, there is a straight Sofia Boutella does Isabella Gianni moment in Climax, which you then reference in K-Hole.
Yeah, absolutely. I was sitting there making that post and I was like, do I say it was Climax or do I say that it was Possession? Because they both had influence on it. They both had obviously Possession had massive influence on Climax. But yeah, I was umming and ahhing, but truthfully, it is Climax that is probably the movie that has spoken to me most in the last 10 years. It
Amazing.
just
What is it
hit
that
me.
speaks to you about it in particular? Which I guess
It
we'll
is
get.
so true to the experience.
Yeah,
It is entirely true. If you've been in any situation that even touches near that, you can instantly feel it. And that is so helped by the performances. I met one of the actors not too long ago when I was in Paris, because he's big in the queer rave scene. And it was such an amazing thing because I think everybody is dynamite. I mean,
I think
the
everybody.
lead performance is fantastic. Absolutely. I mean, that is one of the greatest performances of the 21st century. But the whole cast is just completely on point. And that's been an issue with his films in the past is, maybe you have one or two great actors, but he can struggle to get a performance out
Yeah,
of some performers. But he's completely mastered it since, is my view. And Climax is the film that is the definitive start point of him being one of the greatest filmmakers.
hell yeah.
That would be my view.
With Vortex, the interesting thing, I love Vortex. The interesting thing that I found about the kind of, like, dialogue around it was, I felt like people were kind of saying, "Oh, this is like him maturing. This is like him dropping the edgelord sticker." Like, it's like people were kind of saying, like, "Oh, it was like his Oscar bait type film," which I don't
Mm,
think is fair. But also,
no.
like, it's the same thing as, like, I always say, like, the straight story is much more in canon, or much more in conversation with the rest of David Lynch's movies than people act like. Just, it's basically the small town charm of his work without the darkness. That's what it. Vortex may, like, lack the outward, obviously edgy aspects, and he only spins the camera around the whole way once in it. But philosophically, it's totally in conversation with the rest of his work. It's the same nihilism. It's the same fatalism as every of the others. Bert is a unique opportunity, is what flashes up during Climax. Like, I took pictures of them all the other day so we can go through them. But I felt like, yeah, Vortex is 100% in philosophically the same as his other movies.
I would 1000% agree. I mean, nihilism runs through all of his films. That would be the number one word I'd use to describe Gaspar Noé as a filmmaker, nihilistic, and it is completely there. I remember seeing a quote from Gaspar Noé, when Vortex came out, that his father described it as his most violent movie, and I completely agree. It's going down a different route, but is achieving and exploring the same ideas that he has been since the beginning.
So with Lux Eternia, which I don't know, like I got it when the Arrow Blu-ray came out. So the first time I heard of Lux Eternia, hell yeah, it's a gorgeous cover. The first time I heard of, like, did you watch the Flicker, by the way?
I did.
Oh my God. It
I watched
root
it
like the
all the
flickers
way
it.
through.
Yeah, so did I. My girlfriend came home and I was like, I'll show it to you, but I don't think I can watch it again today. The Flicker is a legendary experimental film that inspired the strobing sequence, the strobing effect in Lux Eternia. But Lux Eternia I first heard of when a friend of a friend had come back from Cannes and they were talking about it, and they said that it was his quote unquote funny one, which I asked, was that reputation justified? And he said yes. But yeah, he saw it in a screening room where there was this guy who in the front of row just kept saying, "Ha, Gaspar, you old bastard." And then and then they went outside and saw Gaspar Noé smoking a jazz cigarette outside the
Jazz
cinema.
cigarette.
Yeah, but it didn't. I got it when it came out on the Blu-ray, and that was 2022. I don't
Yes.
know if estrogen makes me like some films more because I gave it 4 stars back then, and I gave it 5 on this viewing. A similar thing has happened with Sucker Punch, that my letterboxd ratings go up the longer that I'm on estrogen. I don't know. But yeah, it's brilliant. It burns your brain. And one of the things that I really love about Gaspar's movies is, his work has been variously labeled like new French extremity and part of like the new brutalism movement, which you can, there's antecedents to that in like theater with Sarah Kane and the kind of like new brutalism in theater. And like to a huge degree you can say that his work is part of that. But the designation that I like for his films the most is cinema of the body, because I think his movies, there is a focus on the body, in all its destroyed forms, in all its most like base forms: puke, piss, cum, blood. And then in Climax, we see like just it's all about the body. It's this spectacle of bodies coming together to create something, but also destroying each other. But then also, with things like using the frequencies that Riot Police use in Irreversible, it's like his movies make you feel something physically, and in a way that I don't think very many filmmakers do.
I yeah, I agree 1000%. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but he is able to capture feeling and I will feel it.
100%, yeah.
He is the master of that. That's why he's such an influence on me, I think. That when you're creating art, all you really want to do is make people feel something and
100%.
communicate that effectively. Absolutely. Yeah.
The thing that I find about art, like whether it be films or music, is that I feel like art can communicate a feeling that I don't have words for. And that's the thing that I love the most about it, is it's like I don't exactly have words for what this is, but the desolate atmosphere of some things I can just, I can just say it's like this. And I think that's the best thing. So Climax, it's set in 1996, vaguely in the suburbs of Paris. It's inspired by a true story, although in the true story things didn't go as far as they do in the movie. But it is a group of dancers, a troupe of dancers, a mixture of like voguers, crunkers, like, and breakdance people. And there's like an interesting kind of tension in the mixtures between people as well, which is interesting. But basically, they are rehearsing for a tour in America, which, as Chris said at the beginning, you see these interviews where people are talking about that. You've got like, so which star was it that you met when you were in Paris? Was it Teddy?
That's a great question. I don't know his name.
Okay, fair enough.
This is my fault. This is me being terribly researched, but
Oh God,
yeah.
no! You've done loads. So they've been rehearsing for this tour, and then basically it starts with this incredible dance sequence that is just so beautifully shot of everyone, and then it basically unfolds in real time where they're having like this after party, and then eventually the sangria has been spiked with acid, and things go progressively worse. Sophia Boutella, who people would know from the Kingsman movies and that terrible Tom Cruise Mummy that was a non-starter. God bless her. She's one of the most beautiful women in the world and amazing act. So it was so great to see her in this and not in shit. But she also was a dancer who like toured as a dancer with Madonna for years, and that was what her original background was in. So she's using both her acting and her. This was the first time that she danced for years. It was like apparently shot, filmed in a very short amount of time because it came out in 2018, but I believe the production started in 2018 as well, and it was done kind of on a improvisory kind of like way with the cast. I will say, I don't know if you'd agree with me. I think like I know that Gaspar can speak better English than he can write, and I do feel like his roughest thing is when he writes English dialogue. I think his movies are his best in French, and I think his movies are his best when he's writing in French or not using writing dialogue, to be honest.
Not writing dialogue, yeah. But I would 1000% agree. When he's writing French, it flows so nicely. I'm not sure how much is his writing in the English or how
What do
much
you think of
is
Love?
I do not care for love. I did not rewatch it.
Yeah, I don't care for Love either.
Yeah,
It's
it's
got
rough.
some amazing sequences in it, but it's probably my least
1000%.
of his movies. And I think the dialogue in Enter the Void, some of the English dialogue is kind of a bit like rote and just a bit
I,
crap.
I agree, and the issue with Enter the Void is you're hit with that from the offset. Whereas with Climax,
Yeah.
it comes in later in the film, Enter the Void, English dialogue, it's rough.
So like you have like what my notes on characters is Ivana, Berlin bitch. And then I have Riley, twink. And then Psyche, other Berlin bitch.
I'm at
Um,
the twink.
oh, he's amazing. But you got like Teddy
So good.
Smiles, who has a song in the movie. He is the DJ who
Yeah.
is Daddy, who is like the daddy of the group. So like when you said about it nailing that situation kind of perfectly, the way I feel about it is basically the structure of the movie is a night out. It's a night out that goes to hell because it starts with like dance and these amazing music. Then you have these moments where it like splits off and you have different people's having different conversations. And then my nights haven't gone as bad as this one did, but I have been on nights out where friends have got punched in the face and people have had fights and it just all goes to hell. And it represents so much that like it has a feeling of a party that just gets fucking awful.
Yeah, I think it's something that most people can relate to on some level. Obviously,
Yeah.
you can relate to it, I can relate to it. And that's what makes it such an easy film to introduce people to Gaspar Noé's work.
Mhm.
We've all lived it
Oh
to
yeah.
varying degrees, of course, but every person who has had nights out, every person who parties, they've been in this situation. And it captures it with so much rawness and truth that's helped by the performances massively that
Yeah.
you will 100% see yourself in this film in one way or the other.
The point where like yeah, it's pure 4 a.m. vibes, isn't it? It's
The
4
sun's
a.m.
coming up.
or sun's coming up, other people like you leave, when you leave someone's house and it's 7 in the morning and you see people going to work and you're like, oh god, such a degenerate. It's absolute nightmare vibe. We should talk about the soundtrack because it's incredible and it's like the have you what did you watch the feature with Alan Jones on the Blu-ray?
No, no, I
Okay,
haven't.
so he wrote a book called Disco Forever, which is or Saturday Night Forever, which is about the history of disco. But it basically like contains the history of electronic music. Across the artists that earn it. So like it starts with Gary Newman's version of my French pronunciation won't be that great in this. Toi je n'en pédis, which is where we see the girl walking across the snow. You've got Sold It by Chris Carter, Supernature, which is amazing, by Cerrone, Born to Be Alive by Patrick Hernandez, Pump Up the Volume by Mars, French Kiss by Little Louis, 2 tracks by Doppler Effect. The song Dickmatized by Kitty Smile, which is just so fucking good. These, and then, of course, so with Irreversible, like, the things that stay in my head are, like, the sound design and, like, that sound from the Rectum, like, it lives rent free in my head. That, like,
Yeah.
bell churning circular sound. Thomas Bangalter, one half of Daft Punk, returns and does Sangria, which is the track that introduced us. Someone's drinking the sangria. And then we have like Neon, Suburban Nights, Daft Punk, Window Liquor, which is like a big order, I think. If you're going to use Window Liquor in something, like, you are invoking a music video that is iconic. So, like, fair play that they used that and made it their own. But also, like, Wild Planet, Soft Cell, Giorgio Moroder. That scene where the Giorgio Moroder track is playing at the end when everything's gone red is just... the way it just escalates this continuous beat, it's fucking amazing. But, like, also, like, a cover of Angie by the Rolling Stones that plays out the last moments of the movie. And then, like, Cozy Fanny Tutti and COH. Yeah, is there anything you want to say about the soundtrack in particular? Or
These are my favorite artists,
hell yeah.
all put onto one soundtrack. When I first saw this, I wasn't aware of the soundtrack, and you get those opening credits halfway into the film, as Noe would do.
44 minutes.
And 44 minutes, there we go. And you see the list of people, and you're like, I'm in for the most incredible experience of my life.
It's incredible.
And I love how there is no separation between score and like the diegetic sound in the scenes.
Yeah.
They blend and move into each other in such a living way, in a way that I think only he could achieve. I mean, it's been done, of course, but the film lives. It's like you said about it's got such a focus on bodies. The film is a body of all these moving parts. It's I adore the score and the soundtrack. I don't know if you'd even call it score, the 2 original pieces or the 3 original pieces that were done,
Yeah.
but it blows me away every time.
Hell yeah. And she's walking towards the red. Marx just goes, don't go towards the red. Red is bad. And then it becomes, because it's like, there's like two colors that are like in the movie. It's like the red, which is as always, just represents hellishness in these like horrible spaces, and this like hospital ward green that is in the rest of the school.
Yeah, when we were making K-Hole, there were shots that we intended to color grade with that green and decided against it because it kind of took away from the realism of it. But those like fluorescent green lights just create the most incredible imagery, and the contrast that creates with the red as well.
Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss, exactly.
You have the brother-sister characters who, from the beginning in their interview, it's clear that they have a little bit of a strange relationship. And then, of course, like, the movie ends with them waking up, like the Angie sequence at the end where it's just going through what's happened to everyone is like just so masterful. Like, if you haven't seen the film and you feel like I don't know like how much value is to kind of going through the exact kind of things of thought, but my girlfriend said to me when we were watching it, she was like, oh no, a child in a Gaspar no. Oh no, it was when we were watching Lux Eternia, and there's the weird moment with the phone call, and she goes, oh no, a child in a Gaspar Noé movie. The sheer cruelty of what happens, where like you have the T.O., the choreographer's kid, who she like locks in the cupboard with the electrics to protect him from everyone. And then the moment where he's like electrocuted himself and it puts the power out to the rest of the hall. Or the moment where like there's the girl who's pregnant fighting with the other girl, and like it's because everybody's fucked on acid, but like there's this cruelty to it, and I feel like it's like there is a kind of particular cruelty to his movies or to the actions of characters movies that's like very unique, I think, but also it's almost this kind of like religious kind of like I don't mean that to say that I think he's coming from a place of condemnation or a place of judgment of people's action, but it's almost as if there's like this almost religious kind of piousness to how people act in his movies, to like their sense of morality.
I would agree. And I think that's so clear in Lex Eterna. Of course, I'm sorry that I've also been jumping around a lot,
Yeah.
but that's
No,
as
that's
explicit as it
perfect.
has gotten. Of course, but that's as explicit as it has gotten. But that is the feeling, the vibe that is captured throughout his filmography. Absolutely.
So I think going through like the stuff that I haven't seen his segment of Districted.
Nor I.
I think I've seen clips of it where have you seen everything? It's safe to say now.
Aside from Districted, I believe so.
So one of the ones that we were chatting about the other day was a short film that Gaspar Noé got funding from the French government to make a film about safe sex, and it resulted in a short called Sodomites, which you can view on X Video or something, I think, which is like a tribute to Lucifer Rising, where Caroline Trintihy, who is one of the directors of Basimois, where she fucks a minotaur in a kind of leather bar scenario. France. This was on TV. I like.
Aired on television, yeah.
Did you watch the his Sissy Hypno video?
No. Oh
No,
my,
it's not actually
that's
Sissy Hypno, but it's like his hypnotism.
Oh,
Sure.
I did, and I thought that was the perfect encapsulation of what he has done with his whole career. Hypnotic cinema.
I haven't
That's
watched it
how I would
yet.
describe it. I watched it in French. I tried to make subtitles because I can speak a tiny amount of French, and there is no good subtitle file available for it. I was like, I could be the person who
What?
does this. No, I can't. Yeah, I watched what's available of his short films. There are some that are incredibly difficult to track down, and so I watched what's available. But watching the shorts, they mostly came earlier in his career, but there's so much experimentation. I mean, Lux Eterna could be described as a short. It's an
It's a
hour or
long
so.
short.
It's a long short, and those are the where he seems to experiment the most with his style. You
Yeah.
know, with Lux Eterna, you got the split screen that later became the basis of the visual style of Vortex. With his earlier work, you see these beginnings of like the reds, the extreme lighting, the telling a story not quite in the right order as he loves to do, and that was really enlightening. I didn't think they were the strongest films, his earlier ones, but it's so interesting to go back and see the basis of what became his career and what we know him for. So that would be probably the most I can say on his shorts.
One of the interesting things I think about him is that, obviously he's Argentinian born and moved to France when he was like a teenager, fairly late into his teens. Yet, Climax is a movie that starts with the title "A French Film" and proud of it. I think his kind of relation to national identity is quite interesting because the French flag is right behind the DJ deck, but also we have characters who are talking about how they hate seeing it and how it has negative associations. Like, do you think what do you think kind of is like his relation to kind of like Francis? I think he couldn't make his films anywhere else. I will say that. I think like when I remember reading about or hearing him talk about the development of Irreversible, there is no way his movies could be made within a Hollywood system. Like the idea of going to financiers anywhere other than in, mainland Europe and saying, I have an idea for a film, I haven't got a script, but I have an idea. It just wouldn't happen. Did you kind of see anything in terms of like his relation to Frenchness or his relation to kind of like national identity and kind of going through his work?
Yeah, I think it's hard to speak on it a lot because, of course, he that would be a question for Gaspar Noé. But
Uh-huh.
I feel a lot of relation to it, because I am British, I'm Scottish, but I am, technically British,
Technically.
and technically. Um, and there's shame that comes with that
With being
because
British.
well, yeah, we historically, if Germany hadn't misbehaved there, we'd be the bad guys. Yeah.
One of the worst things about my taste in women is that women with really posh English accents really do it for me. And
I
I wonder if like I can imagine like my Irish ancestors like looking at me over my shoulder and but the shame's a part of it too. So like I don't know. I just hear a posh English accent and I just want them to take my potatoes. Like what can I say, you know?
hearing an English accent upsets me to no end, but I don't mean that. I always seem to end up with them.
But yeah, no, you were talking about British shame, the shame of being British, the shame of being assigned British at birth.
Assigned British at birth. Absolutely. It's and so I think in some ways I feel what he's feeling would kind of be my view. Yeah.
Benoit Debbie shout out like Noé's regular cinematographer. Like it's an absolutely beautiful film, and there is so many sequences of of dancing that I'm like when I try and sell people who don't like Gaspar Noé on this movie, I'm like, but there's lots of good dancing. It's not just disturbing stuff. Um, but like I said, it's just so beautiful to see kind of like just these ways in which all these different bodies connect and it's so incredibly done. And I know like the origin of it was that he showed up at a party that I think Kitty Smiles was judging, and so like it came out of him like seeing the voguing scene in Paris and stuff. um but yeah, do you
And you can
kind of have
feel it.
anything?
There was a line that stood out to me at the very beginning in the opening montage of the characters speaking, where the character is asked, if you could not dance, what would you do? She pauses for a minute and she goes, suicide. I'm not in the dance scene, but as someone who creates art, that is so incredibly true. There's something within your body that you need to get out. It's a theme throughout his films. And that goes with the raw emotion of it all. But that spoke to me as a line from Gaspar Noé. That's him speaking, in my opinion, through the film. Yeah, that just stood out to me. I thought it was worth a mention.
No, 100%. I mean, the first episode of this podcast is I used something Louise Ward said, which was I live for cinema, die for cinema. It's a movie I think Climax is a movie that is about the cost of pursuing your art in a huge way. I think it's about the physical, it's literalizing the physical cost of pursuing greatness. That's what it's about, you know. And I kind of just unlocked that. You saying that kind of unlocked it for me now, but it is about that and something like it's about people coming together and creating something and how transcendent that can be, and then how also people can destroy each other. And he kind of said like it's not meant to be like preachy or didactic in terms of being against drugs. I don't think it is. I think it's more just a catalyst for this kind of like societal breakdown to happen.
1000%. And
Um, is there anything else you want to say about Climax?
this is
Oh, sorry, no. Continue. What were you going to say?
Climax is one of my favorite films. I implore anyone who hasn't seen it to check out. This is the finest flow to a film. Everything builds
Yeah,
upon
absolutely.
itself in such a naturalistic way. It is deeply hypnotic. Turn off the lights, watch it loud, and allow yourself to be taken by the experience.
Hell yeah. I wanted to ask because when I was looking at the your letterbox list of movies that influenced K Hall, one of the ones that I saw and I was like, I I'm a fan, although I've not seen Baby Invasion, uh,
Nor
of
I.
of late stage vulgar auteur Harmony Korine. And so you had Aggro Drift would have
Aggro
won.
drift.
What was the influence from Aggro Drift on K-Hole? Because I didn't see it immediately.
Experimentation and a disregard of what cinema is meant to be.
Yeah.
I find it that is so deeply inspiring. I mean, the
100%.
way he talks about it, he trolls. He's a troll.
Yeah, yeah,
But with the way he speaks about it, but there is truth in what is the next thing for cinema. I found that
absolutely.
a deeply inspiring point.
That was what kind of you took as that's the inspiration more than any kind of like direct reference, you would say.
Yeah, I'd say so, but also the flow of just one thing happening and then another thing happening. There's not true narrative cohesion. You're just following these characters experiencing a day or experiencing a few days, as the case may be. And that's what I love about Gaspar Noé's films. That's why I love
Yeah,
about Harmony Korine's films. Sort of self-resolving in a way. The beauty in disregarding what should be done. Absolutely.
100%. And that's one of the things that I love about, Noe, and it's not surprising that, they're friends.
No,
Not at all. Harmony's latter stuff is like my exception, anyways, because I fucking hate Gen AI, and he does use it in Aggro Drift and in
he
Baby
does.
Invasion, and I don't have a good justification for why I hate it, but I allow the films where he uses it. I don't have a justification, and but what I will say about Aggro Drift is I love it. It sucks. No, but it's such the perfect movie for right now because like on the one hand, if you take it literally, it's such like I'm 14 and this is deep like bollocks, like just like the stuff that Bo the assassin says, just like it's such nihilist bullshit.
It crosses
Is
into comedy.
that like 100%, yeah. But it's like, is he parodying? People could be like, oh, is he parodying like Gen Z culture and the kind of emptiness of this? Yes and no, because I think he genuinely does appreciate these things as cinema. Like he's a genuine fan of this stuff, and in that way, it enters this kind of like post irony thing that is like just how the world operates now.
Absolutely. As a Gen Zer, this
Like
is the
I
Gen Z movie.
Yeah, no, but it's just like I don't know, like because I hang around with like some Gen Z trans girls, and there's just a point where you're like the level of just the post irony detachment gets to a point where I'm like I get it, but like I'm also like sometimes I'm like okay, but like what's sincere? Do you know what I mean? Like where is the line? And I remember
Yeah,
someone saying like Spring Breakers was a great parody of like this was over 10 years ago, but it's like a friend saying like, "Oh, it's a great parody of the YOLO generation." I was like, it's celebrating and condemning. His work is very like it is that peak thing of like low and high art. There is no distinction.
absolutely. And I think that applies to Gaspar Noé's films as well. I think that applies to Let's Go Wider, Damien Chazelle's films. And that would be a connection I'd make. Babylon and Climax are such similar films
Right. Yeah.
in
And
a
that
way people don't realize. And I absolutely adore breaking down the boundaries of what is high art, what is low art. Art is art, and these are filmmakers who capture that.
Um, I think especially like right now, there are moments where I kind of create a straw man in my head or straw woman or straw person of someone who has asked me why at this moment am I as a trans woman focusing a lot on like underground cinema from 2000 late 90s and early 2000s. But I do feel like I don't know, like I could talk for hours about why I think this stuff is important or why I think of its value, but also it's just like they do like show something of like a nihilistic early 2000s worldview that seems somewhat kind of like quaint and naive in its in comparison to where we are now. But I think like there is value in art that is has been disregarded 100%, and that be it for whether it's just my personality or what my interests are, but that kind of art is always more interesting to me than stuff that is canonized which is is contradictory because by talking about it in a certain way, we are canonizing it. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, that genre of filmmaking, the quaintness that you talked about, comes across so genuine, even though these are films and filmmakers who do have a lot of irony-soaked elements. There is truth in that irony
Yeah,
in a way that few others can capture.
100%. Yeah, and then I think like you know, it's not necessarily a positive thing, but I think like Gaspar's, sorry, I think like Harmony's work does sum up like how we saw the rise of like the alt right becoming the right that is in power now. Is like it was that obfuscation of like, are we joking or not? That was what allowed a lot of like the current political system to happen. Is this thing of like I say, it's post like his aggro drift is post irony. There is no since it's not about sincere or insincere. It's not about and I say like my first review of aggro drift, I didn't rate it um because I was like, I don't know how to, like, it's boring at times, like it is boring,
Oh yeah,
but also like in a way where it just becomes immersive, that you just kind of drift along with it, like so
aggro
it's like
drift,
how can I say it's bad? That's a bad quality. Like it just is.
1000%. It's such a journey. It captures a vibe no other film has. It is a video game.
Yeah.
It is anti-cinema. It is all these things. But this is Harmony Korine operating on his own level. You go back to those old Letterman clips where he's doing the post-irony thing before it was cool. I came up in the iDubbbz Filthy Frank generation. I've seen it. I'm aware of how these things can be harmful, but I would say there's no hate in Harmony Korine's work. And
No.
I would say there is hate in Gaspar Noé's work, but it's more an
Okay.
observation of the hate that exists within the world rather than being hateful in and of itself.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like I do love the story on Irreversible that I think it was he showed an early cut to Dario Argento, and Argento was like, "This is great, but they're going to say that you're homophobic," and so then he digitally inserted a shot of himself jerking off in the Rectum. I think it's interesting that like with Climax we have so many queer characters, and like where we have like homophobic dialogue and stuff, which I feel is realistic. He was kind of like, I don't know if he was very clearly kind of trying to like nail to the mast how he feels about queer people, or that he's not transphobic or homophobic. I don't know if that was his intention, or if that was just naturally by being in that scene, that's how it's going to kind of come about. But it is kind of interesting to see that contrast, between representations of queerness in his work.
In the opening scene of those characters talking, instantly from the offset, there is a homophobic dialogue, and there's some dialogue that can be seen as ambiguous, but it's very much addressed from the offset, and I think that was the right decision. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
he's learned from his films over the years the best way to communicate these things, and that's part of why I love Climax. He's done it. He's communicated everything in such
Yeah.
a perfect, naturalistic way.
Hell yeah. So, in terms of your own films, I mean, obviously, with asking any filmmaker, it's a lot of it is dependent, but the immediate future and like planned films that you can tell us about.
Very dependent, but a music video for Sasha Korn,
Hell yeah.
which will be so much fun, I'm sure. I have two finished scripts. With Lesbian Vampire, I was trying to explore poetry as film, and with
Okay.
Hale, I was trying to explore jazz as film with the flow. And I have two scripts that are somewhere in between. I have a rom-com script, and then I have something more in keeping with. I'll tell you the rom-com script. It's the story of a trans girl plunged into the world of T for T dating after being voted out of her polycule. Uh, who knows? Maybe some of that came from personal experience. And then we have a slightly more serious script that is more in fitting with Lesbian Vampire, as I said. And I am being drawn between the two, of which I produce next, based on my mood.
Fair enough. Well, thank you for coming on and thank you for talking about a filmmaker that I absolutely love. But with Climax, if
Absolutely.
you go, is Climax a horror movie? I think we agree that Climax is a horror movie. But also it opened Fright Fest, so I feel like justifying that.
Completely a horror movie, through and through.
Absolutely.
Is horrifying. You will be horrified, but with a sincerity that is missing from so much horror, in my opinion. I've had a wonderful time. Thank you for
Thank you so
having
much.
me. I look forward to hearing the next
Thank you
episode.
for coming on and
Absolutely. It was great to just talk about a movie I love. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.